Obi Toppin introduced. He did media with us in Vegas, and Rick Carlisle talked about him too. Let's talk about what he said. Plus, Pacers Summer League Game 2, and there's a midseason tournament now. There's a lot of new Pacers stuff to get to on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today I am back from Vegas, back from the Summer League fun, and here to talk about updates that we got out there in Vegas. We got to meet Obi Toppin. Rick Carlisle could actually talk about him because the trade was official, unlike when he had the press conferences last week. Break down what was said there, some interesting stuff beyond the transition game that Carlisle's talked so much about. Summer League Game 2, didn't talk about that at all yesterday because, for those of you looking for it, all about Pascal Siakam in the buzz, in the news recently via some reporting, broke down all the angles of that from the Pacers' perspective. And then one of the biggest talks of everybody in Vegas, the mid-season tournament, the NBA Cup. I like it more than it seems like everybody else, and I'll explain it to you and give you my one thing I hate about it, and the many reasons I actually think I'm going to really love it, and you might too. But we'll start with Obi Toppin, who was traded after everybody flew out to Vegas, officially traded to the Pacers after everybody flew out to Vegas, so couldn't do a real presser, but we did get to meet him out there. He sat with the team during the first game of Summer League, and then we got to meet him, and after the trade was official, Rick Carlisle was kind enough to spend some time with us talking about him because he could actually say his name and not dance around the moratorium stuff, which was great. So I want to discuss that a little bit, which was really fun to hear from Obi, and he said two words constantly in this little media session, and that was super excited. It was burned into his brain, and he was super excited to be somewhere else with a new opportunity. We'll talk a little bit about the Knicks part of this later because I think it does matter here. But I think, if you're in Obi Toppin's shoes, and you've been on a team where you just can't get on the floor, you're entering a contract year, looking at the Knicks roster, you're not going to get a ton of playing time, even without knowing anything about his relationships with anyone or anything about how he feels about the Pacers. Just a fresh start has to feel so good, right? So hearing him say he's psyched about the new opportunity over and over again was really good to hear. I think if you're someone who's into the Pacers, and of course he mentioned the thing that Carlisle has said so much, and that Tyrese Halliburton slipped up and said the fast-paced style the Pacers have will fit him well, right? Some synergy stats rate him as one of the best players in the NBA in transition. NBA.com has their own transition data. Obi Toppin ranks 79.3rd percentile in that. Last year, obviously, the Pacers saw him hang 66 points on them with crazy high-flying dunks in those 2 April games at the end of the season combined. He was ridiculous in those games. He'll fit in really well there with Halliburton, especially with Bruce Brown, with the many, even if he's on the bench with a TJ McConnell type. He'll just fit really well with the way the Pacers like to play. And I thought it was cool that Obi Toppin described himself as an energy guy, right? Beyond the things he's good at, beyond his athleticism, he called himself an energy guy. I think that is something he can provide at that position, and it's unique. You don't really think of forwards as energy guys very often. You usually think of guards as that. The last forward I can remember being an energy guy was Jakar Sampson. He was a really fun guy to have around, and he ended up stealing a role on a Pacers team that, quite frankly, probably should have gone to Goga Batadze in retrospect. But hey, energy guys do have value, and if Obi Toppin's just that, he still could have some value. I thought he had some interesting other stuff, even beyond what he felt about his fit, that he said. He was asked about his role. He said, nothing is going to be handed to me. Everything is going to have to be worked for. I think that's good insight from him. Obviously, I think it'd be easy if you're Obi Toppin to go, I'm a former number 8 overall pick. I'm headed to a new team that has a very big hole at the 4 spot, although they have Jarris Walker now, obviously. But, I think it'd be easy for him to go, yes, I've got, 20-plus minutes a game coming my way. This is great. Jordan Nwora right there, was great for the Pacers last year. You never know how much Walker's going to play. He will have to fight at least somewhat for 4 minutes. I think he'll be in the rotation firmly, certainly, but I don't think it's just going to be handed to him. I'm glad he has that right mindset. He said he knows he'll have to earn everything. He said, all I'm going to do is let my work speak for itself. I'm going to work for everything I'm going to get in the future. And hey, that's the right mindset going in to a contract year. So good to meet Obi Toppin. I have a story up on Pacers SI if you want to hear all about what he said in that presser setting. There were some Knicks guys on there too, obviously, because, they want to hear from him about his exit from the Knicks and trying to get to the bottom of some exchange he had with Tibbs. There's some audio out there apparently about that, and I don't know much about that. And Obi Toppin obviously would not answer those questions directly, but I use that as a bridge to say I think a fresh start could be perfect for a player who had that going on and was maybe not in the perfect space for him anymore. Now he's traded to a team where he could get more opportunity. It fits him very well. They'll have a role for him. They have more expectations, but not like the highest expectations this coming year. This is a great team player fit. And I think Toppin recognizes that, even though he knows that he'll have to really grind to get those minutes. And despite this team having a giant hole at the 4 in past seasons, they now have actual depth, and he'll have to earn it, even though he does have a very good chance to get serious minutes and really help this team. But really insightful to hear from him, and good to see him hanging out with his new Pacer teammates in both practice settings and on the side of the court for Summer League Game 1. And then Carlisle was nice enough to give us some time at halftime of the first Summer League game to talk a little bit about Toppin. Of course, he brought up some of the same stuff that was kind of alluded to earlier without saying Obi's name at the Bruce Brown, Tyrese Halliburton pressers about the transition part of this, right? That's something that the Pacers are really leaning into. They were second in transition frequency last year. They have this brilliant transition point guard in Halliburton. Let's accentuate that. Let's get guys who fit with that style. Let's get Bruce Brown in. Let's get Obi Toppin in. Let's play that way and build out from there. And Halliburton can obviously be way more than a transition player, but if you're really just thriving in those situations, that's hard to stop. And they can even play early in their offense like last year. Like that was a big thing for Halliburton too, is the Pacers half-court offense has faster possessions, like in terms of seconds, when he's on the floor than off. And so even that is a higher paced setting where Toppin can fit in. Carlisle, of course, is all about that. He also said he likes his character from people he's talked to around the league about him. The things he said, though, this is the stuff that I thought was interesting, is the stuff that goes beyond the obvious transition stuff. And like we've all seen Obi Toppin at his best and what that could be. I wanted to get a little bit deeper on that. One thing Carlisle said is he likes Obi Toppin's touch. And I've dug into these stats a little bit. And of course, like this dude's super athletic and dunks all the time. He shot 74% at the rim last year. Like that isn't just dunks. He had 52 dunks last year. That's a lot. But he attempted a good amount of shots at the rim and made 74% of them. The year before that, he made 73% of them. Like he does finish well inside like 4 or 5 feet. And so even beyond the dunks, that's a skill that could be used well. I think if you're the Pacers, figuring out how to harness that touch. And the other thing Carlisle noted is his constantly growing 3-point percentage. I've talked about that a little bit too. And this is the same thing for Bruce Brown. Obviously, they both had good percentages last year. But for Toppin, it isn't just that he made him. 34% isn't good, but it's not bad. That's acceptable. You'll live with a guy shooting open threes at that percentage. Instead, he took them. He took 4 a game last year. And his career high before that was 2.3. He was really at 3.7. But still, that's a significant growth. And if you dig into the advanced stats, his 3-point attempt rate was barely over 40 as a rookie, was 35.7 in his second year, and then was 58.9 his third year. So you found a way to get him up, right? So those skill growths of finishing and the touch and the shooting growth, I think, are other things that Carlisle likes that helps. And Carlisle, of course, very pro threes. I think that will be good for Toppin if he can continue to get up, 4 a game at 35%. That'd be significant for the Pacers. The final thing Carlisle said that I thought was extremely noteworthy. He said competition at the 4 is good and will bring out the best in everybody. And that was not just him talking about Jarris Walker and Obi Toppin. Although when I asked the question, I said, how does getting a guy like Obi kind of impact what Jarris Walker's situation will be? I don't remember exactly how I phrased it. But Carlisle, of course, brought up Jordan Wara in his answer too, right? Like they have serious depth at that spot. They have guys who are worthy of minutes. I think everybody kind of assumes it will be Walker, Toppin in some order playing 20-plus minutes a game, but we'll see what actually shakes out there. And having all of them, having that competition, and that bleeds to other positions too, is going to be good for everybody, force everybody to be at their level, and force them when they're playing to think about, what's going on. They have to play well, or else their minutes could just be sucked up like that. So good insight from both coach and player. Good to hear from Obi Toppin. Again, I actually wrote about both of these pressers individually. If you want to read more on Pacers SI. Let's talk about the Pacers' second summer league game. They smoked the Orlando Magic. A lot of the stuff from the first game that wasn't so good was cleaned up. Some of the other stuff that was not so good was not good again. So we got to dive into all that in our second segment here today. Before we do that, though, I want to talk to you guys about the great people over at Birddogs. We're making some of my favorite shorts on the market. Birddogs make you look good and feel good. They have their stretch khaki shorts, which are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a sculpted look. And their shorts are the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricted cotton. Instead, they invented their cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches, so you get a slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And Birddogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. I wore them in New York City, walked around all day, felt great. Don't have them on right now, or I would show you, but you could try them yourself. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter the promo code LockedOnNBA for a free Yeti-style tumbler. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or promo code LockedOnNBA for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your purchase. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. I can promise you that. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, go to Locked On Blazers. Obviously, you've heard that Damian Lillard requested a trade, but for the first time since then, their GM, Joe Cronin, spoke on the record in Vegas, one of the last things that happened before I left. And it was very interesting to hear what he had to say, how the Blazers are approaching this. And I think if I were in charge of the Blazers, I would be doing what Joe Cronin is doing. So Mike Richmond, Locked On Blazers, will have more on the latest from Portland. Back to Indiana, though. Pacers Summer League Game 2. They smoked Orlando. It was funny looking at this game at first because their first game, they had this waffling first quarter. They were a little bit ahead, and then this dominant second quarter to take a big halftime lead, right? And then the Wizards just kicked their butt in the third quarter and actually made it interesting. And so this Pacers Magic game started off similarly, right? They were up 6 after 1. They had a really good second quarter. They were up 23 at halftime. Then, I kind of was like, okay, the third quarter is going to tell me a lot about this team's ability to respond to their last game. Pargo's coaching, a lot of stuff. And they hung tough and won this and played the Magic even in the second half and won by 23. That showed a lot of growth from a team perspective from this young group. To me, even though this is more about skill growth in the individuals and long-term stuff than it is about that specific stuff. But I thought that was interesting that in the first half, they copied the script of the first game and then totally dominated to start the second half of this one. I have a lot of random little notes that I could get through, and I probably should have sorted them by player. But just running through the guys that played, because it is the same 9 guys we saw play in the first game. Jarris Walker, man, Jarris Walker is doing stuff. Like, even if you, I was high on his defense coming out of Houston, but he's looked even more mobile than I kind of thought he would. He had 16, 4 and 4 on offense, plus a steal and a block. Like, he's just kind of everywhere. He still's getting those 3 up quickly. He's not making them, and I put this in my notes. He had one, I think when he went to 1 for 5. Yeah, he missed his 4-3, and you could see him get a frustrated look on his face and kind of like fist pump in anger. Like, he knows he's got to make them, and that matters. But the defense looks amazing, and he's just a huge part of that. And in this game, I talked about his center stuff after the first game. In this game, he had some point guardy stuff that was fascinating. The 4 assists were impressive. Some really good setup stuff. Like, you're seeing that creation upside that I was so into. I set up a Mathurin 3. One time he took it up. I can't remember exactly what the other one was, but he had some really good moments in this game. He continues to just be so impressive through 2 summer league outings. And I think you'll get to see even more of that explored because Mathurin, Nembhard, and Jackson are done. Their summer league is over after 2 games. So you're going to see a lot more of guys like that and others. Speaking of Isaiah Jackson, okay, really good at the stuff he's great at, right? Dominated the offensive glass, finished at a high level, 13 points, 6 fouls. Again, that's super concerning. He had 3 in the first quarter, and then he came out. He came back in the second quarter and then didn't foul again until the fourth. And I actually noticed in the fourth quarter, I was like, oh, he still has 3 fouls. That's great. Or I think he had 4. I think he had 1 foul between the second and third and early fourth quarters. And then he had a couple more to end the game, and it doesn't look as good. He noted that. If you've watched the post-game pressers on the Locked On Pacers YouTube channel, he said, yeah, I've got to be better at the fouls. But all the rest of the stuff that he's good at still looks shining. I think that he had a fine summer league, although cleaning up the fouls would have made it way better. The biggest note for me from him in this game, he took one of the 15-footers finally. He just take it. Just let me see that you're working on it, and I want to see it. It didn't go in. That's got to be a part of his game at some point. Like, being a vertical threat is wonderful, but if you can't space at all and his screen setting is not good enough to be this awesome perimeter threat, you've got to be able to do something in the mid post. And he took a 15-footer in this game, and it didn't look awful, and it rimmed out. So overall, I give Isaiah Jackson summer league like a B-. Probably the fouls were concerning, didn't expand his game out as much as I thought. I don't know how much the coaching staff was telling him not to, so I can't just grill him for that. But I thought he mostly was good at the stuff he was good at. Mathurin, was forcing a shot again, 4 for 16, 1 for 5 from deep, but got to the line 9 times, and he did it. 6 assists. The passing, the thing that Gennaro Pargo brought up for him early in summer league practices was there. And I thought that was noteworthy and a big step forward for him because he had too many moments where he was just driving into 3 guys in this game. That was, not good. And I get that he's the most talented scorer on the team, and a lot of them were late clock situations, but he's got to be willing to give that one up because his assists were even the stuff that's just like that will be there for him all the time. I want to say like 4 or 5 of them were just dump offs or an extra pass swing. Like I think the first possession of the game, he swung it to Ben Shepherd for a corner 3. He had one where he swung it to Andrew Nemhard in the left corner for a 3. He had 2 just drop offs in the lane where he gets down there and the big man's wide open. Like that is all just stuff he's got to do. And the extra pass has been his best pass all summer league long. Like that's all it would take for me to feel better about his creation upside, just that he sees that that's there. Right. And then, on X outs, all of a sudden the guy actually has to think about what Matherin's going to do. And, on drives, guys just can't swarm him. Like there's all sorts of little things that come from that. So I'd probably give him the same grade as Jackson for summer league, B-, B-ish. We'd like to see a little bit more exploring the space for him and creation upside. The defense was better than I thought actually for Matherin, but forced it a little bit. Although the passing coming alive in the second game really upped his grade. For me, Shepherd really came alive. Ben Shepherd really came alive compared to the first game in this one, especially late. He finished with 16 points, 4 of 7 from 3. That's his thing. 9 rebounds, including 4 on the offensive end and an assist. That's exactly what the Pacers wanted after he had 1 point in the first game, that he kind of found his groove. And he had some nice defensive moments, too. I think he's done a good job on that end. When Gennaro Pargo was asked about him, that's the thing he brought up, is that he did well on the defensive end of the floor. The fact that he hit that 3 early, I think, made him confident, and he kept playing and playing through it and had some big moments in the fourth quarter. So that game was more the blueprint of what I would like to see from Ben Shepherd in these games, and I think we'll see more of that going forward because he's going to have more opportunity with the returnees all being done. And then we get to the guy that people are not happy that I said he shined in the first game because he had 8 turnovers. Yes, 8 turnovers are bad, but he played very well again in this one. 21 points. 7 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, only 2 turnovers this time. Far and away the Pacers' best player in Summer League so far. To me, he's also done playing. He might be one of the best 5 players who's actually suited up in Summer League. He's only playing 2 games, so he's not going to make one of the all Summer League teams, which who cares about that anyway. But if he played all 5, he'd definitely have a shot because his pace control looks amazing. His passing looks amazing. His defense looks amazing. I have 2 different notes of this. I don't know what plays they were. And one says Nemby looks too good, and one says Nembard looks too good. So apparently I'm being lazy with the way I type, but he was a part of a bench group that did really well on defense. I thought he just did a really good job in both of these games. And I'd probably give him an A- with the 8 turnovers in the first game, preventing him from getting the AA+ for a wonderful summer league that he had. He did a great job, firmly established that he's ready for year 2. Oscar Tshiebwe showed Oscar Tshiebwe stuff. 8 boards, 3 for 3 from the field, plus 7 points. You could see the rebounding kind of come to life in this game. I thought that was really impressive for him. I can't wait to see more of him in these coming games. Kendall Brown, still Kendall Brown. It's 2 encouraging games in a row, 6 points, 5 rebounds, plus 14. His defense, again, looks very good. I think the Pacers have to be encouraged by that if they have interest in bringing him back. And then the last 2 guys, the late second-round picks, Mojave King really came alive in this game compared to the first one. He only played 2 minutes in that first game. He finished with 3 rebounds and 2 assists and 6 points in this one. Drilled a 3. It looked so smooth. Got to the line once. He played really well. I was impressed with the way that he stepped up. I thought he had a really good early fourth quarter stretch that kind of put the game away. I thought that was really impressive. And he had some good moments communicating on defense. I like that we're close enough to the floor that we can actually hear that. And he had a possession on his 2-point make where he was the ball handler for a pick and roll and did a double between the legs, dribbled to his right, came to his left, got into the paint and scored. And I was like, okay, Mojave King, that's interesting. So he won't be with the Pacers this year. Definitely worth monitoring overseas, but looked pretty good in his minutes in this game. I will definitely have an eye on him after some of the moments he had in this game. And Isaiah Wong, after a very ugly first game, brought it together a little bit in this one, had a nice off the backboard assist to Matherin, 2 for 3 from the field. Definitely looking more like a scoring guard than a point guard so far, but at least looks more comfortable in game 2 than game 1. If Nembard's gone and he's the starting one for the next game, definitely a lot of eyes, for me at least, will be on him and what he can do going forward. So that's Pacers Summer League Game 2. A lot more encouraging stuff there, although still some stuff that you'd like to see them clean up, especially some returning guys who are done now. But Jarris Walker continues to steal the show, and he's still playing. So looking forward to seeing what he can do tonight for Game 3. They take on the OKC Thunder. Chet Holmgren, one of my fave guys to watch out in Summer League. I hope he plays. We'll see, though. They have 2 more games on the schedule, and then they'll play a 5th game if they're not in the championship contention, or 6 games if they reach the finals. We'll see. They are 2-0. So in theory, still in the mix. We'll talk about tonight's Summer League game on Friday. Tomorrow, Jay Rigdon's going to join us, and we're going to talk about the winner and losers from free agency on the Pacers so far. Obviously, it could all be an incomplete. We'll see. But I did want to talk about what they've done so far and what it means for the rest of the team. But we're not done today. One of the biggest buzz topics out in Vegas, which was announced out there, the midseason tournament, the NBA Cup. Some people roll their eyes and hate it. Some love it. I'm on the love it side. I'm going to tell you why I love it and the thing I hate the most about it to close out today's show. Before we do that, though, this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. If you ever had a moment in life where you were uncertain about where you were going or what the right path was, I've had that too. You're faced with tough choices. The path forward isn't always clear, whether you're dealing with decisions around your career, relationships, or anything else. Therapy helps you stay connected while really navigating your life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. And therapy can help you with all that. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, and it empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for those who have experienced major trauma or anything like that. It can be for anyone. And if you've ever thought of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, why not jump on over to Locked On Rockets? Hear more about Jabari Smith completely kicking butt in Summer League. Amen Thompson, one of the top picks who did well before getting hurt. Cam Whitmore doing well after falling to pick 20. Lots of intrigue around the top picks. Scoot Henderson didn't play enough. Brandon Miller hasn't been that great. So the Rockets win the top pick battle for second listen today from Locked On Pacers. A lot of buzz in Vegas about the announced midseason tournament. We heard about it in the CBA and knew mostly the structure because of that. But the NBA really put it all together with the team pods and the groups and how all the dates and all that out in Vegas. Very polarizing thing, this midseason tournament. Some people really hate it. Some people enjoy it. I'm going to explain it from the Pacers' perspective and tell you why I like it a lot and the thing I hate about it the most. So I'll just go with why I love it right out of the gate, first of all. So most of this is just regular season games with added stakes, right? Those are games that would have happened anyway. There's only 2 new games, right? The finals is a new game. That's the only new game, actually. It's 1 new game. I'm sorry, I apologize. It's 2 teams playing 1 new game. There's only 1 added game. So for every other game, a part of this is just a regular season game. So if it's just 1 extra game where NBA players are trying and incentivized, that's awesome. I love that. That's exactly what I like. I like NBA games where teams are trying, right? That sounds awesome. So I'm in for that. Even if it is a gimmicky reason, I'm all in for a more competitive basketball with the best players in the world. Now, I get the meminess of the cup, the NBA Cup, and it's going to be silly to see who wins it and all that. But as soon as one team wins it, to me, right, as soon as one fan base is psyched and all the players are psyched and some crowd gets to go crazy and someone's hoisting a trophy, that fan base will get really into it. And then another fan base will the next year. And then all of a sudden that will spread. It just does. So I think the NBA will probably oversell it in year 1 because they'll have to, and it'll be a big push. But once the meme factor wears off, and they get done being over the top creative about it, I think it will stick and be something cool. It'll take a long time, though. This year it will feel super uncomfortable. No doubt it'll feel uncomfortable this year. So here's what this actually is. Here's what this midseason tournament actually is. If you follow the WNBA, it's kind of like the Commissioner's Cup where the regular season leads into this final game, although it's different setup in that it's a little more obvious which games count towards the tournament games. And there's just a little more stakes on it with the group setting and all that instead of just being conference play for the first time home and away against a team. So here's how this works. There's a group stage part and a knockout stage part. And we'll get to the Pacers group in a second, but you play every team in your own group one time, and that'll happen in the month of November. The NBA will set that up. So it'll be Tuesdays and Fridays in November will be your group stage play games. Not every team will play every Tuesday and Friday for those settings, but that's when they will be. And then you get a record based on how you do against the other 4 teams in your group. You only play each team once. So it's just 4 games, right? And so there's 3 groups in each conference. There's 3 Eastern Conference groups and 3 Western Conference groups. The winner of each group goes to this actual bracket part of the tournament. And then the best team from each conference that wasn't among their group winners, which is based on record and point differential and all that stuff, also goes. So there'll be 2 wild card teams. So there's 8 teams after the group stage that enter this mini tournament. The quarterfinals are actually in a team's gym. So if you are the best seed in the East after group stage, you'll get a home game for the quarterfinals. That could be in, for example, Gainbridge Fieldhouse if the Pacers win their group. But the semifinals and the finals in early December will be in Vegas. The semifinals is a regular season neutral site game, and the finals is a new game. So every single game I just said, the group stage, the first and second round of the tournament, those are regular season games. Those count towards your 82 game schedule. So there will be some like flexing from the league to figure out who plays who and when and all that, but that will be a part of your regular season schedule. The finals are the only game that is totally separate from your record. So 2 teams will play 83 games theoretically because of this. So the early schedule for the Pacers will feature the teams in their group. Those other 4 teams in their group, they'll play those games, and those games will be the added importance of having an impact towards making the midseason tournament playoffs. And so it was kind of like, if you're into soccer at all, like Champions League kind of stuff where they put teams into pods and then the pods get drawn into each group. So the Pacers were in pod 4 in the Eastern Conference. I'm not going to get into all that, but the Pacers group ended up being the 76ers, the Cavaliers, the Hawks, the Pacers, and the Pistons. That is their group of 5. So let me now get out of the way the thing I hate the most about the midseason tournament. Why did they make unique groups of 5 and not just use divisions? What is the point of NBA divisions anymore? The title, winning the division doesn't mean anything unless you're in like an obscure tiebreaker playoff situation. And then if you're not going to use them for the midseason tournament, why do they exist at all? Now, I actually get why they didn't use them, because then an easy division could lead to like an easy path to the midseason, the NBA Cup playoffs. Okay, whatever. Why have divisions if it's not going to matter? Like some years that will just happen, and some years the division will be better. I think that's stupid. But whatever. So that's the Pacers group of 5. They'll play those 4 teams, Cleveland, Atlanta, Philly, and Detroit, in November in their group play games that will count towards the midseason tournament. That will be at some point between November 3rd and November 28th, and those games will be on Tuesdays and Fridays, which I like that the NBA did that. It'll make it easier to remember. Okay, all the games are on the league. This is a group stage day. And then in early December, the actual tournament part happens, which is, again, it's only 3 rounds. It's only 1 game, a best of 1 per round. So there is a lot of buzz there. And then the winner of it is awarded the NBA Cup. And there will be a Cup MVP, and there'll be all NBA Cup teams. I don't know what they'll exactly be called. So lots of honors and prestige involved. I don't know that will be the part that people care about. This will be the part players care about. Cash for the winners. If you make the playoffs at all, if you make the mid-season tournament playoffs at all, there's cash coming your way. So every player on a team that loses in the quarterfinals, so the first round of the actual tournament part, $50,000 to each player on the team. If you lose in the semifinals, each player on the losing team of that, $100,000. $200,000 for every player on the team that loses in the finals, and $500,000 for every player on the team that wins the finals. You can eye roll at that when you compare it to NBA money. Obviously, for you and I, most likely, listener, I don't know how much you make. Obviously, for you and I, that's a crap ton of money. But like I'll just pick a 2-way player who already signed with the Pacers. If you're Isaiah Wong or Oscar Tshiebwe, like if you win it, your salary almost doubles. Like that is so significant. So like, that is huge. Or like if you're a 1-year minimum non-guaranteed guy, like that's a huge sum. Obviously for the guy on the Pacers, Tyrese Haliburton, who just signed for $260 million, $500,000 is not like changing your life compared to what you're going to have or already have. But it is still significant for a lot of players in the league, especially some younger guys. Like that is a good incentive, I think, by the league, and something that I would hope they try to grow with advertising in the future. I think that should incentivize players. We'll see. But that's the midseason tournament structure. I like that they basically just tried to make regular season games matter more and added one more fun competitive NBA game. Like I don't get that part of not liking it. It's just the same stuff you're already watching, but in theory more important with one more game. That's cool and awesome and on a neutral site with actual stakes. Like that's fun. I do get the gimmicky feeling of it. Like I understand that it does feel a little forced down your throat. I think that will wear off, but it will take a while. Like this year, it will feel that way the whole time. It'll be marketed everywhere. We'll see how it actually shakes out to be and what it means and how players feel about it as the season progresses. But again, here's what I think. A team will win it this year. Doesn't matter who it is. That fan base will be psyched, and that will seep into the team ever so slightly. And even if it means very little to them when the actual season's done, that moment will not go away. And then that will mean something for that team going into year 2. And then all of us, it'll take a while to spread, but it will get to that fan base that wins it in year 1. Anyway, that's the midseason tournament and the Pacers specific part of it. Philly, Detroit, Atlanta, Cleveland, the teams to monitor there. Those games in the early part of the season will be important. NBA said they're going to try to make it as hard as they can for those games not to be back-to-backs. It's obviously very hard to do that. We'll see how it actually shakes out tomorrow. Like I said earlier, Jay Rigdon's going to join us. We're talking winners and losers on the Pacers roster from the moves they made in free agency so far. So Duarte out, Halliburton extended, Toppin in, Bruce Brown in. Who's the winners? Who's the losers? What does it mean going forward? Obviously, they may not be done. And then Friday, we'll talk about Chris Duarte, the end of his time with this team, Summer League Game 3, and something else. There's always a lot to talk about this time of year with the NBA. If you have any questions about the NBA Cup or anything I said today, I'm on Twitter at Tony R. East. This podcast is at Locked On Pacers. Or if you're on YouTube, comment down below. Thank you all a ton for listening today. Have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow.